First question, if I have a single cell switchgear, basically one cubicle, that houses only a generator breaker connected to a generator, where do I'm looking at this one line at a time, where do I place a bus for the calculation of the incident energy? If I place it between the breaker and the generator, worst case, there isn't protection device to calculate the arc flash levels. That's exactly right. And sometimes that's a problem, that you run into a situation where there may not be direct protection. And so you have to look at what's going to either what's going to limit the arc flash, if there's something there, and if not, IEEE 1584 has what we refer to as the 2-second cutoff. That if it's considered feasible that somebody could react and get out of the way enough, you just end it at 2 seconds. So that's a possible option. There's a reference to the section about not using the incident energy and the PPE category. That would be about labeling. They didn't reference the section, but that would be about labeling. Not to use the incident energy in the PPE category. Yeah, there's a bit of a history about this. Back in the 2009 edition of NFPA 70E, that's when you first saw the language put either the incident energy or, back then it was the HRC, hazard risk category, but not both. And then in 2012, they recognized, well, a lot of people like to use the 2 and the 4 and so forth. So they kind of split things up. And so still you don't list the incident energy, and what they have now is the PPE category. It was, kind of a spin-off of the old HRC without the risk. So you still don't list them both because it's considered 2 different methods. But if you want to use like a level, just call it level 2, level 4. Some people do that. But as I suggested, it's better maybe even to get away from the whole thing, because level 2 historically has indicated a minimum 8 calorie PPE. And as I said, there's 12 calorie. You're seeing other ratings coming in there now. So it's sometimes maybe better just to get away from it. Ooh, here's a good one. I'm not really going to be able to give you a straight answer on this, more for legal reasons than anything else. But it says, can a facility that does not have any arc flash label start with the NEC generic arc flash label and then phase in NFPA 70E calculated equipment labels? Well, the calculations are actually IEEE as the budget permits. Well, it's better to get a good appropriate label up there as quickly as you can. Something's better than nothing, and I'm not going to say that that's suitable or not. Something is better than nothing, but what happens, I've been involved in legal cases, expert witness type of stuff, and if something bad happens, there's going to be a big storm about why the labels weren't there. So yeah, do the best you can, but it's better to have the full-blown, proper labels out there. Will I be commenting on the use of the 2-second rule? Well, I did. I didn't see this come in ahead of time. The 2-second cutoff, it's actually more a matter of like reaction time. And so the origins of it, again, back in IEEE 1584, it was kind of along the lines of, if you have a really long clearing time, and sometimes that can happen. You have a low short circuit current, you have a long clearing time, you can get some pretty ridiculous, is a word that comes to mind, calculated incident energy. So the thought was I'll put in quotes, normal person, if there's an arc flash, you're reacting very quickly and you're jumping out of the way, kind of the fight or flight sort of an instinct. Are you still going to be possibly hurt? Yeah, absolutely. Could it still end badly? Yeah. But it was just, if you have a calculated value of, I'll be real extreme here, let's say 20 seconds, the calculations are going to look like you have your own mushroom cloud. And so the 2-second rule, at least, is maybe reasonable. There's always discussion about that. Just to react, assuming a person can get out of the way. If you're in a bucket truck or a manhole or something like that, then of course 2 seconds isn't going to work for you. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, should the terminology exposed and energized be included on the label? For voltage, that's not such a bad idea. because the shock hazard is when the conductors are exposed and energized. And I think I had that on one of the labels. That's not such a bad idea. As far as arc flash, many of you may recall, I think it was back in 2009, the term interaction was provided. And so the arc flash hazard may not necessarily be exposed and energized. It could be interaction. But yeah, from the shock hazard, it's not such a bad idea to put when exposed and energized on there. It's not required, but it certainly clarifies things. Is there an agency that goes around and enforces... Let me get this whole thing up here. Is there an agency that goes around, audits, and enforces the not to exceed 5 years for the incident energy analysis? To my knowledge, there is not. The way a lot of this is enforced is if OSHA shows up. And I've been contacted by attorneys in the past that will say, they have a client and OSHA made an inspection and they found all these different deficiencies when it comes to electrical safety. Labeling may be one, PPE may be one. And so just from my experience, usually it's a matter of, like OSHA or somebody shows up for an inspection, or what you don't want to have is if there's an incident where somebody's injured or there's a fatality. And then you can bet there's going to be a big stink, is the word I'll use, about labeling, about everything. Because once something like that happens, everything is fair game and goes into the investigation. Enjoyed the webinar. Very informative. Thank you. This is a tough one. When will the next edition of IEEE 1584 be published? I have my crystal ball right here, but unfortunately it's very cloudy and with just a big question mark in it. I am hopeful that sometime within the next year, hopefully sooner. It's an ongoing process. I actually wrote a small little update, and it's out at the forum, Brainfiller.com. It's like the first or second article out there. And basically what's happening is we're going through a revision process right now. It's called Recirculation Ballot. And so the draft goes out for vote, and there's a certain group, over 160 people that are voting. And with every cycle, we receive quite a few comments. And so then we address the comments, and then there's another draft, and then it goes back out again and again and again. And so we're in the middle of that process. And to give an exact timeline of when we're done, I really can't, because it does go on for quite a while. And once we're finally done, then it goes to IEEE Standards Association, and then they work with it for quite some time. So we're, I would say, and don't quote me. I know, okay, I'm being recorded, so I'm being quoted. But sometime within the next year, I hope. But again, who knows? We've had so many odd things happen along the way. But that's probably, I think, maybe a safe bet.